Guys, I've got an extremely exciting metal guitar video for you today. You're gonna get to tell me what you like best. The 7-string metal you're about to hear? Or the 8-string metal that you're about to hear? Now, since I don't own an 8-string guitar, I've brought my good friend Kareem. He's from Dubai.
What's up, guys? Thank you for having me, brother. I truly appreciate it.
And we're about to give you a full track with 7 and 8-string guitars. Now, make sure you hang around until the end of the video because Kareem and I are both going to give you some really helpful tips on playing 7 and 8-string guitars. Kareem, dude, you ready to kick this off?
Oh, I'm ready.
guys, so I want you to comment below. Tell me what you like best. Do you prefer the 7-string metal or do you like the 8-string metal? Now, I want to get into some tips and some behind the scenes on how to become a better guitar player when you're playing lower notes in general, but specifically on the 7 and 8 string. Now, Kareem, I want to start with you, dude. I've actually never played an 8-string guitar before, so tell me some of the nuances and some of the challenges that you had when you first started playing an 8-string guitar.
Oh man, well, the obvious one is you got 2 more extra strings. So that alone was a huge learning curve for me because, you know, I've been playing guitar for a number of years now, and I've only been playing a 6-string. I didn't move up to a 7-string. I played a 6, moved up to an 8, and then bought a couple of 7 strings after that. But I would say the biggest challenge that I had was, you know, having those 2 extra strings where your hand and your fretting hand and your elbow and your positioning where the fretboard is, it's not the same anymore, you know, because you have to move it a little bit. So that was a little bit challenging in the beginning. And then I would say that the second biggest challenge was, you know, everybody's used to the 25, 25 and a half, maybe 26 baritone type of guitars for the 6-string. But now we're talking about, you know, like massive extended range, like 27, 27 and a half, and even 28 inches. So that alone was a huge challenge to move around the fretboard and to get your hands ready and not to skip so many strings, you know what I mean? Because it's a completely different instrument when you first pick it up.
Yeah, dude, adding that 1 extra string, and in your case 2 extra strings, you know, there's a learning curve that comes with that.
Yeah, man, as I was saying, I mean, the first time I picked it up, it was like a completely foreign instrument to me, right? The neck is thicker, it's extended range, you know, everything is different. But with practice, you know, I was able to wrap my head around it within about a week and a half to 2. To give you the best advice, if you're going to pick up an 8-string, this way worked for me very efficiently. I isolated the bottom 2, the F sharp and the B, for about a couple of days. I played nothing on this guitar but the F sharp and the B. I just treated these 2 strings to get my picking hand alternating with my fretting hand, you know, to get used to the new extension range of motion, if you will, and the way you position your hand compared to a 6-string. So just getting the feel of that, just going up and down. The second part, which is basically, I figuratively kind of closed my eyes and treated it as a 6-string. So I ignored the bottom 2 strings and started playing it as a 6-string to practice not to hit those strings by mistake, because trust me, and it will be extremely frustrating, don't break your guitars. You will hit the wrong strings for the first couple of days. You think you're playing the 7th, but you're actually playing the 8th. You think you're playing the 8th, but you're actually playing the air. Trust me, it gets confusing, but it's just for a day or 2 once you wrap your head around it. The third phase is, even though I'm not a lead player by any means, I try to force myself to move from, you know, just playing the bottom strings to forcing myself to move up the fret, to move up the neck, to try to play some leads so I can learn how to skip those strings. And it actually turned out that now that I go back to a 6-string, skipping strings, which is actually somewhat of a difficult technique, became much easier for me on a 6-string, right? Because of how I treated this 8-string.
So Kareem, dude, tell me a little bit more about your style of music, because you and I, we seem to mesh really well. Our writing styles seem to be somewhat similar, but you've got a different twist to your metal that you play, and I'd like you to just tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I wasn't surprised when we first met and we exchanged a couple of riffs. We were like, whoa. Our styles kind of, even though that they're a little bit different in terms of genres of metal, fit in pretty nicely. It's because of the vibe and the style of how we play. But how my YouTube and Instagram page came to life is basically sticking to my roots, you know, being from the Middle East, being from Dubai as an Arab, is I wanted to add some Arabian flavor to my metal. You know, I lived abroad for a very long time. I lived in the US, I lived in the UK, I lived in Australia, and I heard all these different genres of metal and different styles of guitarists and how they play. And I wanted to take all of that and stick to my roots and add something a little bit different to it, you know what I mean? Because in my culture, there's nothing close enough to be considered heavy or let alone metal, you know what I mean? So it's all these different unique or rare scales that you don't hear in metal as much, and trying to take that and somehow make it fit in modern style heavy metal, you know? So it's been just like a journey of experimenting, and yeah, man, that's how it came to life.
Dude, that is so awesome to hear that you tie, you know, your culture into your music, into metal music. I'm one of those people that I love to learn about, different cultures. My wife is actually from Thailand, so I'm very much, I live here in Florida, in America, but I'm very much ingrained in the Thai culture as well. So it's just, to me, it's just fascinating that we can meet each other across the world here and learn about different cultures. Now, I've never been to Dubai, but dude, I would love to come visit sometime.
That is awesome to hear, man. I love Thailand, man, and I love Florida too. But yeah, speaking of diversity, even the same. My wife is actually not an Arab. She's from Eastern Europe. She's from Serbia. So I've been around different cultures my entire life and trying to incorporate that. And I'm just trying to transcribe that into my music, and I hope it comes out or it shows at least. But yeah, in terms of Dubai, man, it's a playground in the desert. I mean, we're not even 100 years old, not even close to 100 years old, and look at the advancement that the country has been through. So I can only imagine where we're going to be in the next 30, 50, 70, 100 years. You know what I mean? So if you ever want to come to Dubai, though, you do have a place to crash, and you know that I already told you, I invited you out. So whenever you're ready, you just come out and we'll be in the studio and we will jam out and I will show you the best time of your life. I promise you that.
Now, dude, I'd like to know more about who inspired you to play guitar, but more importantly, who are some of the guitar players that inspired you to get into metal music?
Oh my God, man. When when I hear that question, it's like, how much time do you have? You know what I mean? I would say, from growing up, my era and the era before that, the music, your standard types of Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, AC/DCs, your Led Zeppelins, all of that. That's what got me into metal, really. But in terms of guitarists, in terms of, me hearing something and saying, I want to pick up a guitar. The reason why I picked up a was because of Martin Larson from At the Gates, Mark Morton from Lamb of God, and Alex Ilea from Children of Bodom. Now, these are completely different types of players, you know what I mean? And they could be considered very super new school, but, I don't neglect any of the guitarists from the early 90s, the 80s, and so on and so forth. As I said, they were my inspiration, but just for some reason, these three guitarists and listening to their sound and their music is, to me was, I don't want to just listen to that. I actually want to replicate it. So, some people might flame me for that, for having these are my top three influences for picking up a guitar and not, like Kirk, for example, which is a huge influence on me. But I love Metallica, right? But like I said, to pick up a guitar, I would say it's these three guitarists.
Yeah, man, one of my influences, of course, was Joe Satriani. It's really hard to be a guitarist and not be inspired by Satch. But I was also inspired by Metallica and Megadeth, specifically Kirk Hammett. I loved his solos. Master of Puppets was actually the album that got me into metal music initially. Well, Puppets and Justice, I bought the two tapes at the same time. And then nowadays, I listen to a lot of Jeff Loomis's playing. I love Jeff Loomis. I love Chris Broderick. Those guys are just awesome guitarists.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Great influencers, I would say. And like I said, to each his own, in the sense of all of these guys influenced you at one point, even from the past, or in the future. They might not influence you before, but they will influence you at one point, because when you become a musician, you evolve, right? So influencers don't stop. You go through different phases, as you say, in terms of listening to different genres, different styles, so on and so forth. So right now, I would say my influencers are different. Jeff Loomis is definitely in my top three. Keith Merrow, and also Ola England.
Now, Kareem, I've noticed something different about your playing versus like every other 8-string guitar player. Your playing is with great clarity, dude. It's super tight, and you riff a lot, which is something my viewers know that I preach on, man. I'm like, don't just play, the heaviest chords possible. Move around. And dude, you do plenty of it. I can hear your notes crystal clear. So what are some tips that you can give me and my viewers out there on playing an 8-string? How do you do that so well with so much clarity?
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And I also like your style in terms of, you're a very well-rounded player in terms of having the right mixture of leads, solos, rhythm, riffs, so on and so forth. Me, I like to think of myself as a rhythm guitarist and not a lead player by any means. So I try to compensate that by having, a variety of riffs within a track. Number one would be reduce your gain a little bit. Oh my God, I hate this guy already. He's a metalhead and he's talking about reducing gain. Yes, guys, because trying to get a clear, crispy sound from a floppy F sharp, depending on the gauge that you're in a super oversaturated amp with a tube screamer in front, have fun with that. It's just gonna sound sloppy and it's gonna sound scooped. Dial down the gain a little bit and compensate for that by having a more aggressive attack on your bottom strings to get that raunchy effect. Number two, cannot stress that enough. It's extremely important. Invest. I don't care how much it is, whether it's a hardware or a software, an extremely good noise gate. I can name a few, but that will sound that maybe I'm advertising or being biased. So do your own research on a noise gate that is good for low tuning. That is key right there. Number three, when it comes to recording your tracks or your guitars without getting into super technical about your signal chain and your clipping, the source of the sound going in needs to be as perfect as it gets, because nothing will bring it back to 100% life. It will make it sound good, but if the source is not good, then you're kind of screwed. Number four, I would say if you are using simulators and you're not miking up a cab, invest in a good set of impulse responses, and I can't stress that enough. Also, again, I can name a few, but you can do your own research and see what sounds good to you. Most VSTs that come nowadays come with a really good set of IRs, but in my personal opinion, I found that some external and aftermarket IRs worked wonders for my style of music and the clarity of my sound. You'll be surprised of taking your mix from sounding, the standalone plugin that I have has a decent cab, to just paying 20-30 bucks for an IR, makes your mix go from crap to like, wow, this is exactly how I wanted it to sound. Last but not least, without getting into EQ, because that's a completely separate topic, but keep it simple, by the way. Stop doing all these graphs and all, just keep it simple with your EQ. I've seen some people EQing things that looks like a freaking, that heartbeat that goes on when somebody's in a coma in a hospital, like in those movies, like boop, boop. What is that? What are you trying to do there? Just keep it simple, guys, right? But last but not least, when you're recording, for me, I love quad tracking. When it comes to 6 strings, regardless of the tuning that I'm in, up until I would say drop B, I'm quad tracking everything. For 8 string, I don't think that is the case at all, in my humble opinion. My advice would be to just double track your guitars and see how that goes.
Green Dude, thank you so much for coming on the channel. Man, I had an awesome time collaborating with you, writing this really cool metal track. And guys, we wrote this together. Like, we just kind of came up with this on our own. So, dude, I had a blast doing it. We'll have to do more of this in the future.
Absolutely, man. It was an absolute pleasure working on this collaboration with you, man. And I loved how our styles just mushed together. Even though that I know you're not a big fan of, like super down tune and anything above 7 strings, but that just shows that how easily our styles mush together, that even with an 8 string and a 7 string, we were able to just come up with something on the spot and make this amazing track. And absolutely, man, I am up for it, and I think the viewers are going to see a lot more tracks coming in, and hopefully in the future we're going to convince Jason to get an 8 string, and there's going to be an 8 string versus 8 string. Again, thank you so much for having me, brother. I truly appreciate it. Panda out.
Guys watching, go to my YouTube description and there's a link to Kareem's YouTube channel there, so make sure you head over to his channel and subscribe there. If you have not subscribed to my channel yet, of course, which you should do that right now, and ding the little bell so you get the updates. Also, give this video a thumbs up, guys. That really helps me. It helps the channel. It helps drive us. We're trying to grow this metal community into something grand. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Kareem, thank you again. And as always, keep it metal.